Greg Bozich, Hall of Fame writer, joins us from WDRB.com. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. It's Purdue, Indiana week. That's always exciting time in the basketball world.
Yeah, normally Purdue is not a top 5 team and Indiana is unranked, but that's where we are too. And I just had someone pull up only 3 times, I think. Has this been the case? Well, no, has in Indiana.
That Purdue was top 5?
And Indiana beat, I'm like, how many times has an unranked Indiana team beat a ranked Purdue team? And I think it's only happened 3 times.
When was the last
88.
one?
Since 88, 98, and 04.
So that would be Knight twice and Davis once.
So
when Archie didn't make the list.
Archie, shocker. Archie made the list, all right, but his list is 0-7. A big old fat goose egg.
Where would you put not beating Purdue on the list of reasons that Archie Miller is no longer the coach at Indiana? I would put it in the top 3 reasons.
Yeah, number 3, but it was so bad that was almost became I don't want to say an afterthought, but everything else was so bad. You're not making the tournament. If you lose to Purdue, that angers you, but if you add not making the tournament along with that, well, now you're just compounding everything, and everything kept getting compounded. But it doesn't help because that's how you lose. That's how you lose a state.
Well, one thing I would add to it, I think one of the tipping points along the way was when he lost that game when Knight came back to Assembly Hall and all the former players were there and they came out really sort of flat for an Indiana-Purdue game. That, to me, was a tipping point that he lost a lot of the fan base and he definitely lost a lot of support from the former players.
I was shocked. That is probably the most shocking game. Maybe, I don't know, Indiana State, IU Fort Wayne is kind of hard not to be shocked at those games, but that Purdue game was as shocking because exactly what you said. I'm like, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're not even a Division I player. If you're wearing a uniform, you play your ass off, and I didn't see that. And you didn't bring the players out for Knight. There was just so much he did not grasp. And so, but definitely there's some guys on that bench that know the difference. How much difference that makes tonight, I don't know, because they got a tall task. I mean, Purdue is just good. They're not just good on one way either. You got Zach Edey, Travion Williams, but Jaden Ivey. Man, they're Stefanovic. They're a legitimate national champion contender.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch basketball on Monday, Purdue was on at noon against Illinois, and then Indiana was on at 6 against Nebraska. It was 2 different levels of basketball. If Purdue plays like that, the way they played against Illinois, Indiana's not going to be able to beat them because Edey was more than Kofi Coburn could handle. Travion Williams does what he needs to do. He's really become sort of a glue guy in many ways instead of a featured piece. Jaden Ivey just is a cut above any athlete that Indiana has in the backcourt. It'll be interesting to see who they put on him to try and guard him. And Stefanovic, I mean, he doesn't do it every game, but, man, he makes a lot of big-time threes. He has absolutely no fear of taking a tough shot. He doesn't hesitate at all. And he's good. And one question I would have about Purdue is point guard. I don't think their point guard play is elite, but it's not terrible to the point where it brings them down.
I can't believe this is the actual number, but I pulled up Purdue's numbers. And if this is correct, they're shooting as a team 40% from 3 points.
I believe it.
That is an astounding team number. I mean, there's not a lot of big-time teams that shoot that high as a team. That's a big number.
I think that 2013 Crean team might have been in the 40s when they had Watford and Hulls and Oladipo was really making them. But, was
that a shorter 3-point line?
Maybe a tiny bit, but 40%. You're making 40% of your threes with big guys like Edey and Travion Williams. You're good.
Yeah, you're solid because the ones you don't make, they're probably getting half of the damn rebounds.
Right.
What does Indiana do with Zach Edey? I watched that game, the Illinois game. I'm like, you can't just. I've been saying this earlier. You can't just block Edey out. You have to block him out of the damn paint because even if you got him blocked out, he's still can score over you or rebound over you. He's just that big. And so blocking him out doesn't do much.
My guess is going to be Race Thompson, because I'm sure they don't want to get Trace Jackson Davis in foul trouble. And Race has the physical strength to maybe try and keep him off the block or away from the rim. But as you say, he's got 7 or 8 inches on Race Thompson. So that's really like a 6'2" guy guarding a 6'9" guy. Don't like your odds. So I think what they have to do is try and minimize that as best they can and play better defense on the perimeter with the guards and make it difficult to let them feed the post and get the ball down inside.
Then this is a game that Xavier Johnson cannot get into foul trouble. Who's going to guard Jaden Ivey?
Great question. I would think it's going to start out being Parker Stewart, be my guess. Maybe not. Maybe Parker Stewart will be on Stepanovic. Maybe it will be Xavier Johnson, one or the other. It looks like at some point it could be an assignment for Jordan Geronimo or possibly Trey Galloway. I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be a string of guys doing it.
Yeah, the thing that Indiana, they can pull this upset off. It's not that they can't, but they have to do something they have not done all year, and that is play 40 minutes of good basketball.
Right.
They haven't played a complete game. They can't seem to go a couple of games without falling back into this massive turnover hole. Got to take care of the ball, and they've got to hit 3-point shots.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And they can't afford to they've become a little lax defensively in some of these games. Against Nebraska, I thought they were not great at guarding the pick and roll in spots of the first half. I know that Nebraska got a couple of very easy layups. Trace Jackson Davis got lost on a couple of pick and rolls. Can't do that because Painter's a good coach and he'll exploit that every way he can. So they're going to have to use their depths too. I think this is the kind of game that Michael Durr is going to have to play 6 to 8 minutes because he has the kind of big body. He might be a guy that would have to guard Zach Edey for a while, not worry about his offense, just worry about playing defense and rebounding and be a guy who goes out there and gives them 8 or 10 minutes against Zach Edey or Travion Williams, either one. Then
I forgot about Gillis, Mason Gillis. He has become a really solid player for them.
Right. Yeah, he has. And he's a guy, coming out of Newcastle High School that Indiana really showed little interest in.
Yep.
And he ended up, I like his game. He's physically, he's a strong, powerful guy. And he's another guy. Purdue's guys play with a lot of confidence. There's not a lot of hesitation in Purdue's team. And we haven't talked about Newman. Newman's had a bad year, but he finally hit a 3 against Illinois. And I imagine Painter's going to, knowing the way Painter coaches, he'll start bringing him back in more into the mix. First seems to sort of have had his role diminished greatly as the season's gone on, but that's probably a sign of, Purdue's got a older, more experienced team. They got guys who've been around for a while.
Yeah, and they play like it. They play like they have a purpose. You can tell that they're wanting to get to the end of this season and continue to get better as they have done thus far. They had you mentioned that game on Monday with Illinois. That was a must-win for Purdue of sorts if to stay in the Big Ten hunt. They lose that game, it was over. They would have been 3 games out, and Illinois would have been 7-0 in the Big Ten with a gigantic lead. Right. That was now Purdue back in the hunt, and like you said, that was a battle for them, and they battled the entire game and pulled up the win with that.
Yeah, I mean, and that we talk about road wins. That was more than just a road win. That's a quality road win. That's like one of the best road wins in the country this year. To go in there and beat that team on their floor, especially when they were leading the Big Ten. And as you mentioned, Purdue had already had won a home loss to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin, we're figuring out as the season goes on, is better than I think we projected they were going to be. And then the more perplexing thing was the loss at Rutgers. Because Rutgers isn't really that good. So, Indiana, this will be a big week for them because as I researched the other day, they've lost 9 in a row to Purdue and 8 in a row to Michigan, and they got them both at home in a 4-day stretch. And they definitely need to win one. And if they probably want to give themselves some breathing room and move up in the bracket. And I think Lenardi had them as a 9 seed in his latest update. They need to win both of them because they'd be the two best. Well, Purdue would be the best win on their record. Michigan would probably be the third best win on their record, I guess.